Hi everyone, it's McDonald here from Trade with Precision, and welcome to this week's equity market update. We have the Russell contract on the screen here. And looking at last week's action, not much happened last week. In fact, let's come down to a 4-hour chart for a second. And this is where we were at the start of the week, back up here, just testing resistance at 74. Had a little run, had a pretty good run up, in fact, the week before, and now just having a little bit of a pullback. So just while we're looking at that detailed intraday chart, remember the 710 level. Same reason we liked the look of it on a break above that a couple of weeks ago. Now is looking like really good support if price pulls back as far as that. It's looking like a good level to show, for price to bounce off and continue on up. As far as higher time frames go, so just having a look at a weekly chart here for a second, and we identified this level a long time before, this kind of 740 to 750 range, and we came up and we hit that virtually on the nose, and we're just having a little bit of a retracement. We haven't had much of a retracement yet, so now of course the question is, do we continue, and how far can we pull back? As I often say, a good healthy pullback is a pullback into the averages, so we haven't pulled back that far yet. So we could have a bit of a pullback to there as far as the weekly chart goes, and the daily chart shows a little bit of room for that pullback. However, if we really look at where the trend is based, it's really been a daily chart trend so far, and you'll see the daily's been pulling back into the 10 and 20, and they've continued on pushing up. We've just pulled back into that range now, so I'm really looking for a pullback not much further than this 10 and 20 period moving averages, and I'm really looking, there's that 710 level again, you can see it in detail on the daily chart as well. I'm not looking for a pullback any further than that. I'll even start to consider, I'll be turning very bullish if price can pull back that far. So I'm looking for buying opportunities again here based on the daily chart, based on the daily chart trend, but being aware of resistance and making sure any profit targets are at least, any trades have profit locked in before price gets up around that 740 to 750 region. If we do continue lower and we do break through 710, then I'll be looking to wait and pause, let the weekly chart have that pullback back into the averages before looking at a similar stance, and it might even be down around 670, whereby we pull back into that weekly previous resistance level now becoming support. So for now then, my preference is for that continuation from the daily chart to have probably a small green candle. I like to look for small green candles to confirm bullish direction, to show small candles meaning professionals are controlling the market, and a bounce around off that support level there. Let's just have a look at some of the other major markets like the Dow, the S&P and the Nasdaq, and see how they back us up, if at all, and if they're in a similar situation. You'll see that the Dow has had a similar thing. It had a really big up week last week, a really big up candle here, and then now, so that was the week before last, and then last week just had this little pullback, nice steady pullback back into the buy zone. If we look at the weekly chart, it's pretty healthy, to be honest. We broke up through what was resistance down around 11,200, and we haven't really got any more up until around about 11,600. We're having a bit of a pullback on the weekly. Everything's still looking bullish at this stage, no change of trend whatsoever, still looking for a continuation to the upside there on the Dow. If we come and have a look at the S&P, S&P, very, very similar situation whereby it's a daily chart trend, and if we look at these nice, beautiful fanny moving averages, every time we've pulled back into them, we've had a turnaround from that level, and I'm looking for a turnaround around about these levels to continue in that uptrend. Having a look at the weekly chart, even the fact that we made higher highs break up through here, even though we're now pulling back, it's healthy to pull back. Look at how many weeks we'd had up here on the S&P with hardly even a breather. All we did last week was basically stop to take a breath. They've been buying for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, with only a couple there which were pretty much neutral. So 10 weeks in a row, 8 of them were good, strong, bullish up weeks, and only 2 be neutral. This is the first selling week we've had in 10 weeks. That is not bad. It just means the market's taking a breath. That's actually a good thing. Prepares us for the next push up. If we just lastly have a look at the Nasdaq. And very similar, I won't keep on repeating myself, but it is very strong there, looking like the point where we could turn around based on daily charts, but based on weeklies, if we do pull back further than expected on the daily, it could be a weekly pullback, and it's very nice to identify these areas, and we can see at 2055 on the weekly chart, really strong, and also coinciding perfectly where price would have pulled back into the averages. So if the daily does pull back further, looking for that weekly bounce around about those levels. Coming back to the Russell, therefore, and thinking what are the two possible scenarios. So one possible scenario is a bounce off the 710 level and a continuation of the daily trend. So let's have a look at the daily chart. If we come back into this area, we're looking for a small green candle, a confirmation from the candles at least, of a change of direction. It might happen around 710, it might happen a bit above that. It even could come down and reject that level. So long as we see rejections, if price breaks lower than 710, I want to see a rejection, I want to see it back above there quite quickly. Now if that does happen, I'll be looking to trade long on the upside, looking for another test of 740 to 750 zone and a break up through it. If it doesn't happen and we actually break down through that level, then coming to the weekly chart, I'm simply expecting a pullback into the weekly moving averages, and that means I'll be looking for a pullback anywhere from around about say 785, where we come down and we meet the 10-period moving average. Of course, that'll be a little bit higher, so even by the time the price pulls back to there, the average is probably going to be up around 700, that kind of area. Also a big figure, just simply because of the big number nature of it, 700. But equally, if we pull back into this area around about 670, there's also really good resistance, and that will be the next place I'm looking for a bounce. But at the moment, I see no reason whatsoever to be turning long-term bearish on stocks. I still continue to be very bullish on stocks and across the equity markets. Just maybe a little bit more of a pullback is due, but actually expecting a continuation of the daily chart trends for this week. Hope that helps all. Happy trading, have a great week, and I'll speak to you next week.